He thought he humiliated me. I waited until his audience was bigger. My name is Mark. For 20 years, my life was defined by structure, efficiency, and problem-solving in the field of systems engineering. I dealt with complex processes, redundancies, points of failure, and optimization. Emotions? They were variables you minimized, or ideally, eliminated from the equation. Perhaps that's why the eventual collapse of my own marriage, after 22 years, felt less like a personal catastrophe and more like a critical system failure. A failure caused by deliberate, calculated sabotage from within. The final system crash? It happened at our son's high school graduation. Our son, Kevin, was the primary output of our combined system. The part that actually mattered. His journey through school, his acceptance into a good college, his graduation day. These were the successes we'd engineered together. Or so I believed. That day was supposed to be the culmination of shared effort, a moment to acknowledge the successful launch of the next phase of his life. Instead, it became the platform for my wife, Jessica's final and most revealing act of sabotage. The atmosphere at the school stadium was buzzing. Parents, students, teachers, a chaotic but familiar system. Jessica was there, playing the part of the proud, supportive mother and wife. She had perfected this role over the years. A convincing interface masking corrupted code beneath. She had a way of presenting herself that disarmed people, made them trust her. I, on the other hand, tended to analyze the underlying code. The system breach didn't happen overnight. The first warning signs appeared about 3 years prior. Small glitches in the data, joint account statements showing expenditures that didn't align with our budget or lifestyle, transactions in cities I knew she hadn't visited on her supposed girls' trips. Then came the behavioral anomalies. A sudden, intense secrecy around her phone. Long, hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. Unexplained absences. My engineering background trained me to look for patterns and dependencies. I didn't confront her. Confrontation is inefficient. It alerts the intruder to detection and allows them to cover their tracks. My goal was reconnaissance, to understand the full scope of the breach. I started monitoring the system discreetly. Digital breadcrumbs, transaction logs, metadata. It became clear she wasn't just having an affair. She was actively restructuring our financial system, diverting resources, creating hidden partitions. About 2 years out from Kevin's graduation, I discovered a significant exploit. A large sum of money, supposedly for a home renovation project we had discussed, vanished from a joint savings account. It didn't go to a contractor. It went to a holding company I'd never heard of, linked to a P.O. box in another state. This wasn't a simple affair. This was sophisticated, calculated theft. That was the pivot point. The moment I moved from detection to counter-protocol design. I knew then this wouldn't be a standard system rollback. This required a complete system rebuild, initiated from my side on my terms. My objective wasn't recovery of a failed partnership. It was the recovery of assets and the implementation of a justice protocol that balanced the scales she was so eager to tip. I contacted a colleague from the cybersecurity world, someone who specialized in digital forensics and asset tracing. He recommended a sharp, no-nonsense family law attorney named Ms. Chen. Like me, Ms. Chen dealt in facts and strategy. I presented my findings. The transaction logs, the holding company name, the suspicious credit activity I'd quietly compiled. I didn't bring emotion to the table. I brought data. Ms. Chen understood immediately. "Mr. Mark," she said, reviewing the files, "most clients come to me with anecdotes and accusations. You've delivered a complete system schematic, highlighting the vulnerabilities and the data flow. This isn't just a divorce. This is a white-collar crime case wrapped in a marital dispute." That was precisely the lens I wanted to apply. Over the next 2 years, while Jessica continued her operation, oblivious, we built the counter protocol. We traced the flow of funds from the holding company. We identified the associated parties, her lover, a struggling real estate developer she was apparently investing in. We documented the assets being diverted, the fake invoices, the shell corporations being used to launder money. It was a parallel system, designed to mirror and ultimately disrupt hers. We secured my personal assets, establishing firewalls she couldn't breach. We created blind trusts and offshore accounts she wouldn't even know to look for. We gathered evidence of her fraudulent activities, including communications with her lover and others involved in the scheme, meticulously archiving every digital scrap. Maintaining the facade was the most energy-intensive part of the process. Pretending everything was normal, attending family functions, discussing Kevin's future with her, all while knowing the extent of her betrayal and the impending collapse of her world. But I viewed it as necessary system overhead. Data collection requires patience. Execution requires precise timing. As Kevin's graduation day approached, Jessica became overtly confident. She started talking about selling the house, downsizing, vague plans for her future. She was laying the groundwork, making her move. She thought I was oblivious, stuck in my engineering world, unable to see the obvious. She mistook my patience for ignorance. That was her critical error in judgment. We decided the graduation was the optimal venue for triggering the counter protocol. It was public, ensuring accountability. It was emotionally resonant, amplifying the impact. And critically, it guaranteed Jessica would be present and unable to execute damage control remotely. Ms. Chen's team, along with agents from relevant financial and legal bodies, were on standby. The final court orders, asset seizure warrants, and indictments were signed. Informational packages detailing Jessica's scheme were prepared for key system stakeholders, her family, her close colleagues, her business partners, and even the beneficiaries of the funds she'd diverted. That morning, I felt a strange sense of calm. The system had been designed, tested, and was ready for deployment. I put on a suit, standard uniform for such events. Jessica, ironically, was fluttering around, fussing with Kevin, checking her appearance. She was focused on the optics of the day. I was focused on the operation. The ceremony itself was predictable. Speeches, music, names. When Kevin walked across that stage, shaking hands, receiving his diploma, I felt that surge of genuine pride again. That was the real success metric. Then it was over, and the crowd flowed onto the field. We found a spot near the oak tree, meeting up with my parents, my sister, and Jessica's side of the family, her parents, her brother. Amidst the congratulatory chatter, Jessica cleared her throat, her voice gaining a performative brightness. "Everyone," she announced, her smile wide, drawing attention. "Can we just share some exciting news?" A few people turned. She put her arm around my waist, a gesture that felt like a physical lie. "Now that Kevin is off to college," she beamed, looking directly at me, "Mark and I have decided it's time for separate paths. We're getting a divorce." A wave of shock rippled through our small group. My mother gasped. My father's face hardened. Kevin, who had been laughing just a second ago, froze, his smile vanishing. Jessica's parents looked stunned. Jessica, however, maintained her bright, false smile. This was her moment, her controlled detonation. She expected my system to crash. Tears, anger, confusion. She expected me to be blindsided, publicly dismantled, leaving her free to proceed with her arrangements. "It's all handled," she added, a subtle note of triumph in her voice. "The paperwork is filed. It's a clean break." "Handled?" I repeated softly, my voice calm, measured, cutting through the stunned silence she had created. I didn't raise my voice, but every word was delivered with the precision of a laser-guided missile. I met her gaze, letting a small, knowing smile touch my lips. The kind of smile that signals you know the system is about to fail catastrophically for the user. "That's interesting timing, Jessica," I stated, turning slightly so I was facing our families more directly, positioning her beside me like a co-presenter. "Because just as you were making your announcement, the counter-protocol was executed." I saw her eyes widen, the smile falter. She didn't understand yet. I continued, my voice clear and steady. "Exactly 42 minutes ago," I announced, the number specific and undeniable, simultaneously with the legal service on campus. Agents from the Financial Crimes Unit, acting on the detailed forensic report I commissioned, began executing asset seizure warrants. On all accounts linked to your name, the holding companies, the associated shell corporations, and the primary beneficiary of the diverted funds, Mr. Mamd Lover's name. Jessica's face went white. Instantly. The cheerful mask dissolved, revealing raw, unadulterated panic. Her eyes darted around frantically, her breath hitched. She wasn't just pale. She looked like she might faint. She tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. Her family stared, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension as they watched her reaction. I wasn't finished. This wasn't just about money. It was about accountability. "Furthermore," I continued, directing my gaze towards her parents and brother, who were now staring at her with horror, "the full forensic report, detailing the systematic siphoning of marital assets, the fraudulent accounts, and the coordination with Mr. Lover's name, was just delivered. Copies were provided to the senior partners at your firm, the Ethics Committee, and filed with federal prosecutors. That was the system overload. The combined impact of financial ruin, professional destruction, and public humiliation." Jessica let out a small whimper and stumbled back. Her brother instinctively reached out to steady her, looking utterly bewildered. She covered her mouth with a trembling hand, tears finally welling in her eyes, not of sadness, but of total crushing defeat. Her calculated scheme had been met with a colder, more precise calculation. She choked out, "Mark, you can't." "Why?" "Why?" I repeated, the trace of a cold smile returning. "It wasn't personal, Jessica. It was a system correction, a response to a critical breach. You designed an exploit. I simply patched the vulnerability and restored the parameters. And perhaps delivered a little bit of cold justice." Kevin's graduation day definitely didn't go according to anyone's original script, but amidst the chaos, I saw a shift in his expression. Initial shock replaced by a complex mix of confusion and something else. Later, much later, he told me that watching that moment, seeing the stark contrast between his mother's performative cruelty and my quiet, decisive action, taught him a profound lesson about integrity, consequences, and the power of handling a crisis with a clear head, not emotional outbursts. Jessica's clean break turned into a total system crash. The legal fallout was swift and severe. The financial recovery was significant thanks to the early planning. Her career was over, her reputation annihilated. The new page she envisioned never got written. She learned the hard way that trying to exploit a systems engineer's life is a guaranteed path to full system restore with punitive damages. This wasn't about anger or revenge in the heat of the moment. It was about restoring balance, about ensuring that a calculated betrayal received an equally calculated and ultimately devastating response. A perfect, cold execution of protocol. Have you ever had to design your own counter-protocol to a system breach or betrayal? What did you do to restore balance? Share your own moments of cold justice in the comments below.